Hello, Jesse here. You ready for the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? And are you sure? Okay, here we go. I've been putting two and two together, and God has been helping me to do so, and just seeing the trash, the basura, and a lot of the ways that people have been moving in their lives. There are people that are calculated in what they do, what they say, how they move, how they act. I am the only true, naturally born Texan in my family. My parents, they moved from North Carolina, and my parents, one is from South, the other one's from North Carolina, and when they were, I know what happened. They were enlisted in a way by God, but what they had to do was they had to leave the environment that they were in, because to be in that environment and to have me was not acceptable. My father got a career in a field that he could work in and actually do well in, which is what he did. He focused on that because it was an easy position and the job paid well and gave him training. So he needed to, of course, maintain that position, provide for his family, meaning that they could not live and or be in a impoverished state when they had me. They had to move where God directed them to, which was Texas. Moved them to Texas, Houston, Texas. I was born and raised in Houston, Texas, and conceived as well, too. During their visit down to visit the area, decide where they were going to live. The area of Houston at that time was undeveloped, especially where they decided to reside. It was undeveloped, meaning there were 2-lane roads, fields, and trees in the area where I grew up. There were not many schools, not many grocery stores, so on and so forth. When I tell you it was undeveloped, it was undeveloped. And that's what God wanted. Now, my parents, they moved or came from Carolina area. And my father had a reputation in North Carolina, Charlotte to be exact, in the area where he was from. He was basically, in a lot of ways, a menace. He terrorized a lot of people. So much so to the point when we would go back to Charlotte, or go to Charlotte to visit his family, we would go to the different corner stores in the area of the neighborhood where he grew up. And the individuals behind the counter would ask who our parents were, or who our father was. And we'd tell them who our father, tell them our father's name. And they would repeat the name almost in a scared tone, in a scared manner. Like, that's your father? Like, oh, ain't nobody gonna mess with you. Ain't nobody gonna mess with you. That's the response we got from a lot of people in the neighborhood. We could walk around that neighborhood, go anywhere we wanted without our parents, and nobody would mess with us. So at a young age, I knew my father was involved in some stuff in that area of town. My mother and my father were involved in some stuff. And God did not want them in that area, living in that area. He did not want me to grow up in that neighborhood, in that area, in that environment, period. He wanted to take me out of there. He wanted me to be in new environment, undeveloped. And my parents were aware of this. They knew why. They knew why. They knew exactly why. But this gave them another, gave them an vantage point. It gave them a chance to have a clean slate, so to speak, in a new area, a new state, new city. Nobody knew them. It's almost like they went stealth as far as what they are capable of, you know? And they started working. They made a connection. I don't know how she did it, but my mother made a connection with my godmother. And my godmother introduced my mother to her church. And from there, that's how it all started. My mother and my godmother. Of course, there are neighbors in this new neighborhood. And my father established friendships with a lot of the neighbors on the block. You know, became friends and cordial and so on and so forth. My mother as well too, but you know, she also had to work and get a job, and just like my father and so on and so forth. But you know, they basically, you know, worked. They got a good start, you know, and as they increased, they were able to mask who they really were and find people that they could manipulate and use for their benefit. Basically, this was their time, this was their chance to basically start in a new city, new town, where nobody knew what they've done in North Carolina, South Carolina, and basically instill a different type of chaos and disorder, except to go against me. Because their attitude was, why would God bless me when they could take those blessings and use them for themselves? So it was sabotage, as I said before, from the beginning. It was sabotage. It was intentional sabotage from the beginning. And they enlisted people from the neighborhood, people from church. And when it was time, my mother was the only one that was going to the church. For some reason, Father didn't want to go to church. You know, he already had established, you know, and or played the game of church back in Charlotte. He played the game of church, you know, what it was about, how he could go in there and, you know, manipulate and flip things and do things and so on and so forth. And I really think he enjoyed it. I think it was more of a pleasure for him in Charlotte, but to kind of get involved in that again, I think he was kind of hesitant. I think he allowed my mother to get involved in it because my mother was shunned and or looked down upon because she had a baby out of wedlock, her first child out of wedlock with my father. And so her church back home basically shunned her and treated her like crap. You know, they didn't like that she had a child out of wedlock, and so they made her feel some type of way. So starting again in Houston was her way of finding a church where nobody knew her past. Nobody knew what she did in her past, what she engaged in, so on and so forth. So nobody would shame her. They would always believe and or assume rather that all of their children were had in wedlock. So nobody looked down on her at the church. She basically could start fresh, and that's what she did. But that doesn't mean that she didn't still have some demons within her, as well as, you know, some insecurities and negativity from her experience with the church when she got pregnant with my sister out of wedlock, and that whole situation, as well as her mother and so on and so forth. So it was her chance to be seen in a different light. Her attitude was, well, I can put that shame on my children or on my child, and they focused on putting that on me, shaming me, and me being the black sheep or the scapegoat of the family. She went to great lengths and great extremes, I tell you, to have me to look in a certain way, not only in the community of the neighborhood, but the church community as well too. And that was very disappointing to find out the truth about that. And my father, he came on board to the church at a time when the church was experiencing a transition when it came to a new pastor. That's why he came on board, because he could work with the new pastor and manipulating things to go in a certain direction. So when he came on board, it was it came across as if it was it all happened naturally, but no, it was all planned. It was planned through another party, another godmother, so to speak, of the church. Her name was Madeline. And she was the one that initiated and or instigated the bringing in of the new pastor. And it was all basically done behind the scenes at her house, where a lot of stuff was done. A lot of rituals were done. A lot of witchcraft was done at her house. And they used me, actually, in a lot of different ways to get everything in motion and going in the direction that they wanted it to go in. Oh, goodness gracious. So when my father came on to the church, he was then in charge of, the treasury department. So he was a treasurer, head treasurer in the department. He had a title position. He had a couple of titles positions. He then went into teaching classes with children, which I don't think that was a good idea, because he was able to manipulate the children into doing things and engaging in certain behaviors. And then he started to team up with my mother to come against me. So basically he started to lead, the downfall of his child, in the eyes of church members. So he was very good with words, very good with using his words to manipulate, using his charm, so to speak, to manipulate people into believing and or doing certain things for him and whatnot. And I saw him a couple of times where he tried to turn some of the other members against me as, it being my fault and or, just basically having me looked down on and seen as a problem or whatnot. So when my father came into the church, that was when the two of them started tag teaming individuals. They were able to tag team other couples, tag team other members of the church. So it went from not just my mother doing a lot of it on her own, which she never really was doing it on her own. She always had him in the background kind of directing and guiding her on how to move and how to do certain stuff. And then he came in there and they started tag teaming these different individuals and affecting a lot of different people, not just me, but a lot of other people. So they are definitely a pair that work together to attack and or hurt and sabotage others. And I tell you, they did a lot. Not just to me. They did a lot to me, but they did a lot to a lot of people. And they're in a lot of trouble. A lot of trouble with God. A lot of trouble with God. So I'm sharing this with you because, when I tell you I've been through it, I've seen a lot, I've dealt with a lot, and I had to keep quiet for a lot of what happened. I mean, my oh my goodness, my father, my goodness gracious, my father, he's a manipulator. He's a good manipulator. He flipped so many people. They used people from the church that did certain work, HVAC, other different types of work and whatnot. They used them to do work at the house and whatnot. Independent contractors that got him favor from those individuals. He used people. He basically, I'm just put it like this. He sowed into people that he could then turn around and ask for favors from and or get them to do stuff for him. But the way he did it was with charm as well as manipulation, using his words. And it wasn't all like negative. It was basically him setting up certain things to look a certain way in the eyes of other people so that he could then go in and say, well, you see, this person's doing this, so blah, blah, this is what's happening, so on and so forth, yada, 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 so, we really need to do it this way, or blah, blah. He was just very good at using his words, as well as he was good at body jumping into other individuals and using their vessel. If they allowed themselves to be opened up into doing that for him. So, yeah, it was pretty bad. I actually remember, I'm going to tell you like this, a certain situation that happened. I remember I had this dream. I woke up from this weird dream, and it was a weird dream. I'm going to share it with you, though. There were 4 individuals, and they all looked like monsters, like they were in a different form. And there was this other person that was on a bed, and they were surrounding this individual that was on the bed, 4 of them, and they looked deformed. They looked like they were monsters, evil devils, and they were surrounding this person, and they were all basically assaulting this individual. And there was a door, and they were all taking turns. And I remember I was kind of watching this seeing this from outside the door, and the door was slammed shut by one of these devils, one of these entities in this scene. And it was almost like someone was being sacrificed. Someone was being sacrificed. And these 4 guys around this one person that was being sacrificed were basically engaging in some kind of sexual play with these 4 devils. And my father was one of them. And I don't know if that was me. I don't know what it was, but it was. I couldn't tell you what it was, other than what I saw. And I woke up from that nightmare, and that's when I realized, okay, my father is not a good person. He's not a good person. And that happened a few years ago, probably about 5 or 6 years ago. That happened. And I never looked at him the same. I mean, I didn't look at him with a lot of respect for many years. I'm talking about from the age of, 11, 12. I didn't look at him with being, a good person or a good father. I saw him as being a wicked individual because of his behaviors and what he had engaged in over the years, and how I saw him come at me and attack me in various ways that were unwarranted. And it wasn't until years later that I realized and I came to understand the reason why he did so was because he was threatened by me and he was jealous of me. And so he was engaging in different tactics and evil, wicked behaviors to come at me in the manner that he did. And I was very disappointed by him because he was supposed to be a father, and he was supposed to be an example of a good parent, a good father, and he was not. He was not at all. And I was very disappointed with him because of his behaviors and things that he engaged in, especially and my mother as well too. I was disappointed in her as well because of her behaviors and what she had engaged in as well too, to come against me. So there we go. I'm gonna leave it at that. Gotta go.